Good morning, everybody. Bonjour. Neshi Lilcott's here on Star Nation's magazine, radio, publishing fan page on Facebook, doing a live stream. I did the card draw for today, and I thought I'd share it with you again. It is a gorgeous day here on Saturday, May 6th. I think that's what that is. And I'm going to adjust my camera just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here in Toma, Wisconsin. Sunshine again. We had thunderstorms last night, which I tell you what I should probably do is do a live stream outside on some of the gardens. I have May apples. It's a spring plant here in Wisconsin. I think that's probably in all upper Midwest. But they like double in size overnight. I walked out here this morning and I thought, holy cow. Because they were just little yesterday. Now they're double the size. So, are you interested in the card draw this morning? It was, they're kind of fun to do, you know. I set the intention and I start shuffling, and the card, when people do a card draw, they do it all different kinds of ways, right? And what I like to do is to keep shuffling and holding the intention, and a card will jump out, or more than one card will jump out. And so this morning, I literally jumped out, landed on the floor. It is, I'll mark my page here, it is the Council Fire. The Council Fire. It's about decisions. Decisions. In Star Nation's organization, there isn't a day, literally a day that does not go by that there's decisions that have to be made, both tiny little ones and big ones. And so this kind of card is very appropriate. Hi, Jill. Good morning, Jill. Do you have your cup of coffee with you? I already finished mine. I have a glass of water now. It's 10 o'clock here in Toma in the Midwest, and I thought, well, let's get started on this card. The card itself is about the coming together of the people, of leadership. I know, yeah, good coffee stuff, right? I always look forward to that very first cup. I'm not one of those people that have to have it in the morning, otherwise my day just doesn't get started, right? It could range from anywhere from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock or 10:30 in the morning, and there's some mornings where I don't have any coffee at all. But I had a really good cup of coffee, and my husband brought home donuts this morning. I know. I did have one. Chocolate covered. Got to get to the card. Stay focused. Stay focused. All right. So the Council Fire, I'm going to show the picture again. Let's see if you can see this. Notice how they're sitting in a circle around a fire, right? And in this picture, you can kind of tell that Jamie Sams, the creator of the cards, she's rather eclectic in the use of tribal information, native information. She gathers it from different parts of Turtle Island, United States, all the way, I think it's pretty much coast to coast. The Seneca from the Iroquois Nation on the East Coast, to the Navajo and Apache, Lakota, and I can't see, there's probably, yeah, and notice, see what I noticed on here with a few people were wearing blankets, being covered with their back to us, right, those images, and I noticed that, they look similar. Not quite, but they look similar to Pendleton blankets. And Pendleton blankets, for those of us on the east of the Mississippi, are equivalent to the quilts that are done west of the Mississippi. The Oshetee people, the Great Sioux Nation, they use a lot of quilted blankets with specific designs that they stitch on. Here in the East, we use a lot of Pendleton blankets. Getting a Pendleton blanket from somebody is, it's a very honored gifting. Hey, Rob. Thanks for joining us this morning. So, the Council Fire card. Let's say in the old days, in our ancestry, the council fire was, a council was called when there was a question that needed an answer that affected the entire nation. And that could be a few clans together that form the nation, or within a clan itself. And the people sitting in the council were the people who were in the leadership. Now, that doesn't mean that there was one person above another. It just meant that the different families, the clans, would send their person that they had in their leadership position to the council so that they represented the entire clan. Okay? And most of the clan, the council members are elders. And consisted of not just those representing the clan, but also those that were, I don't want to say responsible, but they had the leadership or the responsibility in, say, healing, herb lore, those who did the seer work, the holy people, and most times there was the seer or the holy person was not the same person as the healer. The healer is the one who went out and knew all about the plants and their, what they brought to the people in a healing way. The seer or the holy person is the one that could see into the future, could see spirit. Traveled in the dark in spirit. Good morning, Julie Hedges. And so everybody was represented around the council fire. And the council fire is a sacred fire. And even the starting of the fire has its ceremony. These days, what we use are, lighters and sometimes, we have, what are those called? The fire starter, the liquid, some sort of inflammant, right? Because it's easier. And even today, when we're doing especially with the Potawatomi, there's a certain ceremony to start the fire. And started in the old way, which is without the use of a match or a torch. Many times what they do is use flint still. And so anyway, the council fire, when they would come together, the elders and the representatives would come together, it was really about working toward a solution or an answer that was going to affect a lot of people, the whole nation. Good morning, Cindy Goldman. Thanks for joining us. The card that I selected this morning, that actually Spirit selected on the card draw, from the Jamie Sams deck, the Sacred Path cards, is Council Fire. And I was just sharing about how our ancestors would go into council and who those people were sitting around that council fire. And so they would come and make decisions that's going to affect everybody, right? And so in modern day, the council fire, sometimes there is a more traditional council fire that happens, depending on the nation. And depending on how many traditional people are still available and in leadership positions. Okay. Many times it does revolve around the more traditional religion. whether it's the Medicine Lodge or something like that here the Medowin Lodge, here in the upper north Midwest. Okay. What has replaced the council fire in some respects is the elected council, tribal council. And the tribal council is the government for recognized federally recognized tribes in the United States. The structure itself is based more on American law, U.S. kind of structure. Elected officials, you have the president, you have tribal the members, secretary, treasurer, that kind of thing. And when they have tribal council meetings, that means that the elected officials are the ones that kind of come together on a regular basis to conduct business on behalf of the nation, right? There's certain times of the year for the Potawatomi. We meet 4 times a year in the General Council. And the General Council is all the tribal members coming to the reservation to attend those quarterly meetings. And with that comes our input to get on the agenda and to have input into a decision that's going to be made. Generally speaking, the people are the most important, not necessarily the elected official. And the reason being is that they represent us, the people, and their responsibility is to make decisions based on the good of all the people, not just a few people, but all the people. Now, they're all human, too. So you also have in there some issues, sometimes one family isn't as well liked as another family, and so those kinds of things also get involved. But the thing is that everyone has a voice. Everyone has a voice, and in a traditional sense, no one is more important than the next, that their importance are equal. Okay, no matter what they do to help the nation, the people, is that everyone is equal when they come around the council fire. And so this card is about decisions. Decisions. Now I'm going to read to you what Jamie Sams has to say about this. Okay, she says, if you've been waffling over what to do next, the council fire card is insisting that you make a decision. There can be no forward movement if you fail to decide which trail will lead out of the swamp and into the forest. It takes courage to make changes in your life, and all changes must begin with a decision. Do it and don't look back. Life awaits you in all of its beauty. Whenever we have a life lesson going on, there's always decisions around that too. Yeah, Julie, there's cardinals singing here. The mail has been very loud this morning. That and that we have also a mating pair of crows here, and they were also very loud this morning. Yeah, it's kind of nice to hear them, isn't it? So when you have life lessons going on, and there's always decisions that have to be made around life lessons, right? And many times we do kind of get stalled, indecision. We end up being in our heads a lot, and there's fear involved usually because you don't want to make the wrong decision. You don't want to go down the wrong path. You don't want to face the consequences sometimes for the right decision or the most correct decision. And so you kind of get stalled and you kind of vacillate back and forth. That ruminating gets in your head, right? I'm just looking at Jill's comment. Slightly different take on the interpretation for me today. Potentially, I have medical decisions to make. I was just thinking this morning about how to get all the docs to think historically and who else, not physicians, I want in my counsel. Exactly. I also have a tendency to not make decisions. So perfect for me. Good. I'm viewing myself as one of the members of the council with fire wisdom at the center. Thank you for the explanation of the role of the council. Absolutely. You're welcome. You're welcome, Jill. And those participating members around the council fire, like I said, are generally elders. But in your own personal council fire, you can have anyone. It would be nice if you could have an elder there that has had some life experience, just to weigh in, so that when you're ready to make your decision, you have a more rounded quantity of information that covers many different aspects from different sides. Because when we're looking at a situation, we can only see it from our perspective. And if you think about it, if you're thinking about, let's say you're in a room and the situation is in the center and you're sitting in this room looking at it, looking at the situation, you can only see it from your position. If you want a different view of the situation, go across the other side of the room and sit and look at it from that position. And so, that is kind of an image of how many different sides of a situation that we can take in. When you have a council, they bring in their life experiences, their gifts, their talents, their education, and so they can see it from their perspective, from their position around the fire or around the room. And so that's why everybody has an equal voice, so that when they make a decision, it's more comprehensive, right? And so when you're thinking about your own personal counsels, that's usually our close, tight-knit circle of friends, right? Those are our go-to people. Those are the people who have been there maybe for many years. Maybe it is a friend that you haven't seen in a decade, but you talk every once in a while, and you call them. It would be nice to get everybody in the same room, physically, right? But we're spread out all over the United States these days, and so, even if you do it electronically, have a Skype call. I do that once a month with my sisters. We do that once a month. And so the council, in a traditional sense, would be made up of elders and people responsible for the clan or for the people. On an individual basis, we can have our own council fires. We can have our own council. Jamie Sams actually adds that if the decision of another has left you in a precarious position, make new decisions of your own. There is no need to make your decision based on another's. Consider all possibilities in how your decision affects others. Then be courageous. Be courageous and act. Find your truth and stick to it. We find ourselves many times, on different ends of a situation from somebody. Sometimes they're even close people, sometimes they're strangers, especially if you're working out there in the 3D world, and basing your decision on your own truth. And that's when you have to be honest with yourself, right? With your own truth, and to be able to stand in that truth, and to be as kind about it as possible, but to also use your own voice, right? And to state that. Julie is saying, these are valuable teachings and excellent perspective, especially since I don't have any experience with this in this lifetime. Yeah. Cindy says, yes, find your truth and stick to it. Exactly. And that takes courage, doesn't it? And sometimes it takes more courage to stick to it with people that are close to you, family members, best friends sometimes, because we don't want to hurt their feelings. We don't want them to think badly of us, and because they might be in opposition to that truth, because they have their own truth. so the best thing we can do is to be kind, to state it, to communicate it. That's what those council fires were all about. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody got along. That just means that everybody had an equal say. They could, when it was their turn to speak, they had the opportunity to express as much as they wanted to, and everybody was in a position of truly listening, paying attention to them, focused on what they were saying, not doing three things all at the same time and listening and trying to listen to them at the same time. That's not focused listening. And so it goes beyond just sitting around looking at the picture. It goes well beyond that, right? It even gets into the ability to really focus and really listen to what another person is saying. Yeah, and Jill is agreeing too, finding the truth and sticking to it. The other thing that I wanted to mention is elders. In the modern day, even in tribal government, they had to figure out, what does that mean? They had to identify it, quantify it. And so many nations, what they have done is they've identified that anyone over 55 years of age, or sometimes 60, is considered an elder. Which puts me into that category of an elder. There's some days when I claim it and I say, okay, I'm going to be as helpful and informed as I can be as an elder. And other days it's like, I can't be an elder. I'm too young to be an elder. But that's what a lot of tribal governments have had to do, is they had to identify and quantify what an elder is. Now, in the real world, not every elder is a wise elder. They may have a lot of experience because they have life experience, right? So if they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they have a lot of life experience. That doesn't always translate to wise. It doesn't always translate to wise. Now, there is a term that's been used, and I don't know if I agree with it or not. I'm going to share it. There's some younger people, tribal people, who who separate out a wise elder from a not so wise elder. And a not so wise elder they call oldsters. They're oldsters. They're not elders. They're oldsters. It's just that they're old, but they're not really wise. And when they talk about the wisdom, there's a lot of people who are looking toward someone, an older person, who has experience in traditions, in ceremony, in the culture. And so they're missing that link, or that connection to the culture. And so here we sit in modern day, and there's a lot of older people who never grew up in the culture, never attended certain things, because, in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, it was not cool to be Native American. It was actually life-threatening many times to be identified as Native American. And so there's a whole generation or two that kind of stepped away from that. And you have to include those people who even went to boarding schools, because in their formative years, they were not a part of the culture. And so there's this missing, there's a gap. And there's a generation or two, younger generation or two, that are looking toward older people, and in fact sometimes even stereotyping or romanticizing, oh, they're Native American and they're older, that means that they have a lot of wisdom and they know about ceremony and they know about this and they know about that, and chances are that they don't. And so we saw that again, referring to Standing Rock situation, where not all the elders had the information about ceremony and about language and tribal language, and so, you know, it really shined the light on this gap, and I think it's a good thing. And even when you're doing a council, when you're forming your own council, I think that you need to include those people. I do, because they have a perspective. They have a perspective. They have something to add to the conversation. And that way we have a more comprehensive look at what needs to be decided on. That's just my 2 cents. All that for just a council fire card. Jill is saying, thank you for saying that. I also perceive that children are entering the world over the... Okay, she didn't finish that. Julie says, good point. Experience doesn't always translate to wisdom. Jill is finishing it. She says, are entering the world with a remembering who we are and what we are about, that it took most of us decades to achieve. What do you think? Yes, the effects of loss in the Native community. Yes. I really do think that younger generations, I have a nephew who just, I think he's already turned 18. He turned 18 this year, graduating from high school next month. And when he was little, and I'm talking a little guy, I mean, like he was maybe 5 or 6, they were here visiting, and he came downstairs, and no, I was upstairs. I was coming downstairs, and he was in the living room, so I could kind of see down, you know, because I was up on the stairwell. And he took one of the cushions that I had for the floor, and he sat down, and he got into a near lotus position, and he did a mudra. I'm walking down. He even had his eyes closed. And so I stood there for a little while and, you know, sensing him. And so I went into the kitchen, got a couple glasses of water. And when I came into the living room, I asked him if he wanted a glass of water. And he took the water. And I said, so what you doing? And he goes, oh, it just feels good. And I thought maybe he had learned it from Dragon Ball Z or something. And he said, no, he says, I do this every once in a while. I don't know where I saw it. It just feels good. Nobody taught it to him. He remembered it. He's also the little guy who said that he remembered some past lives and was talking about them. So I agree with you, Jill, that for maybe older generations, because the energy, the vibration that we were living in was much denser. And younger generations, when they're coming in, because the earth is vibrating at such a higher level than she's ever vibrated in written history, is that the frequency, the vibration is higher, and the veil is much thinner. And so those younger generations that are coming in with intact memories. And so maybe those intact memories will help fill the gap of the unknown by maybe a slightly older generation. Like my nephew's, he'd be considered my grandson, maybe his mother's generation or my generation. And so that they would come in with this knowing. Wouldn't that be cool? Come on. When you're forming your council and you have younger people in the council, it's just not elders, but maybe people of wisdom, period. That's something. You also need to know that there's many different kinds of councils. There is the tribal council. There are the people who come together that represent the entire nation or the clan. But there's also adjacent or supplemental maybe councils. There's the Healers Council. There is the Teen Council. There is the Council of Women. There's the Council for Warriors. There's lots of different councils. It's just not one. And many times the representative from those individual smaller councils will be asked to attend the much larger council so that they can bring the information that they have when a big decision is going to be made. Okay. Cindy says, love it, very evolved. And Jill is agreeing, never thought of the density aspect. Well, that's kind of the stuff I've taught. And it is, when you talk to people who were the first wave light workers, they talk about having to, have a certain diet. They had to be able to raise their vibration. They had to, when they did, what were those called? When they tried to connect to spirit, and they were in a darkened room. It was so much. They had to go through so much more to connect to spirit to get the information. That's why there were so few people who were able to actually do that. It took effort. It took self-discipline to be able to carry that. Didn't mean that they didn't have the ability, is that maybe they just didn't have the self-discipline to take it to that degree. And these days, there's a lot of people who see spirit, quotation, sense spirit, and not have to go through all of the different hoops that they have to jump through to be able to connect and contact spirit. So, all right. So that is the card draw for today, the Council Fire. And when you're making decisions, you can form your own council if you like, to help you gather information as comprehensively as you can, and select the people who you'd like to have on that council. My suggestion is to add an elder. Because they life experience, right? Life experience. Now, I wanted to give you some information about what's coming up for Star Nations this week. It's a big week. I'm going to be very busy. On Tuesday, from Star to Stone with Mervyn Kelly. I think it's on at 8 a.m. Eastern 8 a.m. Central, 9 Eastern on Tuesday morning. If you like crystals and stones, he's going to be talking a lot about that on Tuesday morning. The things that he says people should know about crystals and stones before you purchase or before you do a dig, right? If you're going to collect them yourself. And then Tuesday at noon Eastern is Polly Joe LeBay with Chakra Sessions. And on Tuesdays for Chakra Sessions, it's very educational. Polly Joe teaches us a lot about our chakras. And then there's also a very specific healing meditation for the topic for the day. And I should know the topic because I just did the promos for that show, but I don't recall it. You can check out our fan page and it's listed there. And so she leads a healing meditation for that. And then I'm on Tuesday night, Star Nations Communications from Home. A bird almost flew into the window. Communications from Home. And this week we're talking about the Tree Nations, also known as the Standing People. We're going to be talking about trees on Tuesday night. Yeah. And then Wednesday, Polly Joe's back Wednesday night. She does Soul Connections on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Is it? No, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Soul Connections with Polly Joe. And that is completely about healing. You're working with your spiritual team. They are working with you. She's providing the sacred space and the guidance in the meditation. And let me tell you, those are some pretty powerful healing sessions because it's meant for healing the healers. So if you're a healer of any kind and you haven't been taking care of yourself and going to your own healer, Wednesday night might be for you. So anyway, there's that. And we're going to be publishing Star Nations magazine on the 10th. And so we're in the first rounds of editing the PDF right now. So it takes a little bit of a keen eye for that editing. After I've looked at it and handled all of those aspects for multiple times, I need other people to look at it. So and we'll be publishing on the 10th. We got a bookkeeper coming to help get the first quarters of the books done, and my mother-in-law is moving this week. Got lots going on. So this is a very busy week, and I'm glad we're doing these card draws together because let me tell you, getting help and turning towards spirit and saying, what do we need to know for today is so very helpful. All right, I'm just going to take a look at who's saying what, and then we're going to enjoy the rest of our day. All right. Cindy is saying, thanks, Neshi. Great info. Jill, thanks for bringing this energy into this day. And Julie, all great shows on Star Nations Radio. Yes, it is. Live stream. Okay. Well, thank you for being with me this morning. I am going to go get my second cup of coffee and sit down and work on the magazine a little bit this morning, and enjoy the Sunday. It's gorgeous here. Enjoy your day and the rest of the week, and we'll see you tomorrow morning for another card draw. Okay? All right. Ba Mamina, until we see each other again.